my name is Vanessa Mack, and welcome to the debut premiere of my show, Health and Wholeness, where we will be spilling the tea on wellness. Thank you for joining me. Looking forward to you tuning in. We'll be back soon. Welcome to my show, Health and Wholeness, where we'll be bringing deep conversations into our community. And we are so looking forward to engaging with our audience and bringing understanding to a variety of topics that is plaguing our environment, our community, especially with COVID taking place right now. So Health and Wholeness will be featured on a monthly basis. And I would like to welcome my first guest, Latasha Henderson, who will share with us. Oh, I'm sorry, but first of all, she's a domestic violence advocate, and she will share her experience with us, what she went through as a domestic violence victim.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a ride. It's been a ride. I'm very happy that you can join me. I thank you for bringing humility to this show and willing to tell your story and understanding that your story needs out here, that it's going through domestic violence and not talking to anyone, not finding a safe refuge, and not understanding the process because they're going through it. So I thank you for joining me. I thank you for being Health and Wholeness very first guest. I'm excited about it. I'm emotional about it, not because of all the work that is put into it, but because you said yes. You said yes because you're ready to tell your story and to help others.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So tell me, what made you decide to go on social media? I'm going to tell the world that my story. What made you decide or get you to this point?
So that's a good point. It took me a while to get to this point, to be able to tell my story without crying and being emotional. And I'm ready. It took a lot of levels. It took a lot of healing. It took a whole lot of forgiving. And I'm finally ready to tell my testimony. It has been shared multiple times, but the more I tell it, the more I get stronger. And the more I pour myself into it, again, without being emotional and crying and so forth and so on.
Great. Talk about the different levels of abuse. Can you tell our audience and share with our audience exactly what the different levels of domestic abuse is? Because we just think it's the physical, right? And we also know that there is some mental behind it, but you gave me 5 different levels.
There are a multitude of levels. There are so many domestic violence levels. There are so many levels of abuse, and just to name a few, yes, physical is the most popular one, but we have religion, we have financial, we have mental, verbal. I mean, there's so many levels of domestic violence that it's just not enough time to share today.
Okay, with domestic abuse, how were you, I hate to say introduced to it, but that's kind of what it is. You're introduced to domestic violence innocently, not knowing what you're going into. Sometimes you don't see it ahead of time. So share with me and share with the audience exactly how were you introduced to domestic violence?
Sure. At a young age. It started, I want to say, maybe honest to actually witnessing my mother at a young age. And my mother, for years of domestic violence abuse, I mean, every area, isolation, physical, verbal, and then ultimately being introduced to substance abuse. And I'm thinking that because it had went on for so long that it became the norm. I'm thinking that it was a norm. And not knowing that my mother allowed it to go on, which her name is Patricia, by the way, because she literally saw her mother, my beloved grandmother, go through it. And so when it happened to me, I'm thinking that that's a level of love, especially being my husband at that time.
So when you met your husband, how old were you?
Ex-husband, 19.
Ex-husband, I'm sorry, 19. And you were married for how many years?
So we were married for 17 years on paper, 15 under the same roof.
15 under the same roof.
Yes.
talk to me or walk me through how were you abused? Let's just cut to the chase. How were you abused? How did you walk into the abuse? Did you see the abuse prior to marrying him? What was the history of him that you may have known or not known?
So I didn't see any red flags. I'm a young 19-year-old mother of two young babies, and just really very promiscuous, wanted to get out of my grandmother's home. And he came and whispered some sweet nothings. From the relationship that I had with my two older kids' father. He was my high school sweetheart, and I believe I was just hurt. Yeah. And this one came along and whispered sweet nothings, which I did know him through high school, but he was never under my radar. I was really just into my first children's father. And he stated that he was going to the military, and I'm like, yes, that's my key to get out of my grandmother's home, and I can just be in another state. And of course, we know that didn't happen. And so with wanting to leave, my grandmother's home, and I had two children already, and I'm gonna have this good life. I mean, that was the imagination that I had. Not even seeing that there was a generation, a history of abuse right with his own family.
In our pre-interview, you went into your marriage with the all-American family view.
Yes.
And you wanted to have, as you shared with me, 6 children.
Yes.
6 children.
Kind of like the Brady Bunch.
Exactly. And you said you were going to have this with him. And did he want the same?
Yes, and of course he wanted a son eventually, but the Lord said no and blessed me with 6 daughters.
Okay.
I have twins who are now all grown and gone. And so just by him I had 4.
Okay.
But yes, I wanted the Brady Bunch type family, the mother and the father and the 6 children. Not necessarily 3 girls, 3 boys. It was just 6 children and the dog.
And the dog. And you had the dog too?
Eventually, down the line.
Okay. So walk us through when the abuse started within your home.
Sure. So shortly after we got married, maybe like 4 months after 4 months into the marriage, we had to move in with his mother. He had went away to boot camp, boot training for the military. Had an injury, came back within 3 months, and I found myself out of my grandmother's home. She didn't play that. She was like, country bumpkin, you married, now get out. And living in this home with a multitude of people. The house, they smoked, they played cards, and he was the only male in the home at that time. And trying to get my education, here I am pregnant with his children, my set of twins who are now 28, his first children, and I had already had my 2 older children. And I had found myself stuck. I was trying to go to a community college, and I found myself stuck without transportation. So instead of taking a bus, which I never knew how to take a PACE bus, I had found a friend. That had known me from junior high to high school, and he offered to bring me home. And I guess fear came in because my ex-husband asked me, well, how did you get home? And I said, I caught the bus. Then I go out and say, I caught the cab. And he goes, no. And then that was the first slap, pregnant with my twins.
Okay, great. So we're going to wrap it up right here. We're going to take a brief break. I want you to continue on with this story because our audience needs to know the subtle things of abuse that you don't see, and you keep going throughout the process. So let's take a break.
Till he never, go broke never. On my grind, she make it clap like I'm Busta Rhymes. I got the juice to slow you one, they want my team.
Okay, we're back, and thank you for joining us and staying tuned. Latasha left off where the first slap was based on her getting a ride home from a co-worker or a co-student, and he was not pleased or happy with that. And she also indicated to us that he never went away to the military. So you continued to stay after the first slap, the first physical abuse that took place. You stayed.
I did.
Let's move forward from there.
And the reason being is because of the history and what I had witnessed as a child with my mom. She stayed. So I'm thinking that things would get better, and they didn't. Due to, the abuse continued for years, 15 years, and vast majority of it is because the babies kept coming. As it was stated, earlier, I have 6 beautiful daughters, and again, all grown and gone, very successful, and 4 by him, and the babies just kept coming in. I would think that, in my mind, I'm thinking that things would get better as the years progressed and as they got older and doing birthday parties and, housewarmings and things of that nature. And they didn't. It was something internal that he had going on. And I didn't find out until years into our marriage that his father, the mother literally murdered the father because he was beating her.
Whose mother murdered the father?
So my ex-husband's mother
murdered
his biological father because he was abusing her. Didn't serve any time. It was self-defense, and so it was literally the rage inside of him, I do believe.
So he was missing the love of his mother based on, because she was going through abuse herself. Yes. So there was a void there.
Absolutely.
From a parental loving perspective, there was a void.
Yes.
But he picked up the behaviors that he saw and brought it into his own marriage.
Yes. And then I believe, conversations that we had, because I wanted to literally get down as to why do you hit women? Why me, the mother of your, the mother of your children? The one, we had a huge wedding, and you made a covenant with God, but he was not into church and I was. And so from the time, I think he was 6 years old when he lost his father, but then the mother married, so his stepfather was an alcoholic. So he had abuse all around him and did not know how to cope with it other than physically abusing me.
Mm-hmm. So now that you're in a marriage and you're being abused, describe the abuse. Describe the different types of abuse that you went through. Because as we stated earlier in the show that there were different levels of abuse. Because now you're a mother and you have 6 children. So that's a whole different page. That's a whole different book now when it comes to domestic violence. So give me an idea, give me a picture, give the audience a picture of how you go through that.
So a typical day would start off, I've always had a good job. I've always had a good paying job. I've always had a flexible job, so I can be there for my daughters. I made sure that was greatly important for me. I never missed a game. I never missed any of their activities. I never missed parent-teacher conference. And then it got to the point where I even started working overnight for a few years to make sure that I was there with my babies. And so a typical day it was kind of like based on his infidelity. It was a lot of infidelity going on. He was a chronic cigarette smoker and just didn't want to clean up. And so these things were different. It's the opposite of me. And so if I say anything, he can have a really bad day at work. If I say anything about you can't smoke in the car with the girls in the car and the windows are up, slap. Or I stopped eating pork at one point in my life and he wanted a certain meal. Well, because I don't eat pork chops anymore, you did, but we didn't discuss that. I asked for pork chops when you went to Fair Play or Jewel, slap. Or even if I say anything about, I knew that I sex patterned at that time. And it became less and less. And so I would question him about it. It was more so like be seen and not heard. Slap. That turned into punches. That turned into dragging down the steps. That turned into pushing into the wall so hard that you literally broke the drywall. So that was kind of like a typical day. That literally became the norm until. But you stayed. I stayed. You stayed for 15 years. I did. Because of your children. But your children also witnessed the abuse. They did, and vast majority, I would say like 75% of the abuse was when they were at school. Because mind you, I didn't have to be at work until midnight, and so if he'd leave after I dropped the girls off at school, I'd come back home and get some sleep, and just any little thing he would pick a fight with me about. any little thing. And so, yes, I did stay in the marriage thinking that things would work out. I even suggested counseling. But what I did not do, and I regret today, I never told a family member.
You never told a family
I never said.
Well, you did. In talking in our pre-interview, you did.
So when the first hit started, which we were 4 months into our marriage in 1992, I walked maybe like 12 to 15 blocks to my grandmother's home in the middle of the night, pregnant with twins. And then I had one in the stroller, and I had, who's my 31-year-old, well, she's 31 now. She was walking in the middle of the night. I snuck out of the house, and I went to my grandmother's home. Again, my grandmother's a country bumpkin, and she goes, I told her what happened. She said, "What are you doing here in the middle of the night, Tasha?" And I explained to Mama, I said, well, he hit me, and still had kind of like a red bruise on my face. And so my grandmother, the words that I would have never thought to hear from her, she said, "Well, baby," she'll sit down next to you and she'll rub your leg.
Like grandmothers do.
Yeah. And she said, "Well, you're married now, baby." She said, "You got to go home." She said, "You can stay here for tonight, but tomorrow you got to go home." And that did not sit well with me for years. And she finally explained it to me in early part of 2008, right before she passed, why she suggested that I went back home.
Do you want to share why she said that?
I asked her, and I was really emotional, and mind you, a little bit quick synopsis on my grandmother. She suffered from dementia. Of course, you don't die from the disease, but she had complications, and and so I asked her, I said, "Mom," I said, "can you answer this for me?" And I didn't even know if she was lucid or not, but I just took a chance. And I said, "Well, Mom, can you explain to me, I had an incident years ago, and I want to know, why didn't you help me?" And true enough, Mama never said my name. She just knew that I had 6 girls. "Where's your 6 girls?" She never, when the dementia progressed, she never said, Tasha. She never called my name again for years. She literally said, "Where's your 6 girls? And you've done a fine job, and I'm proud of you." And so I asked her, and again, taking a chance, she told me, I said, "Why did you tell me I had to go back home? After I told you I had been abused that night,
Right,
here I am pregnant." And she goes, "I didn't know what to say. I felt ashamed." And so I'm like, ashamed of what? Now my grandmother was a little tough, five young lady. I'm like, God-fearing woman. I'm like, ashamed of what? She said, "I didn't know what to tell you because nobody helped me." And at that point, I knew, it dawned on me, like, you dealt with abuse? And so literally, God allowed my grandmother to be in her right mind for those few minutes. And then she went back to the confused part of it, but she was lucid enough to tell me the reason why. And she told me, she said, "I regretted that." She said, "And I wanted to tell you several times what to do, but I didn't know how. I felt ashamed."
We're going to take a break. To my Facebook Live audience, we're spilling the tea on domestic violence, guys. We need to know. It's generational. Stay tuned. Okay, Latasha, so now we're back, and we were able to take a break to recover, recoup, because we were getting emotional here now. We were like, woo, yeah. This is deep. So now we've gotten to the point where your grandmother came out of that mental delay of dementia to tell you that she didn't know what to tell you. She didn't know what to do because she dealt with it. And then she went back into that stage of dementia that she was in. Just that moment that changed your life. So you can have an idea of what and why you're going through it.
Yes.
But what we haven't talked about is your mom. Your mom, I know that the relationship is a little torn and rocky, but it goes back to maybe her relationship with her grandmother, or with your grandmother.
Right.
So we're talking about generational issues here. We're talking about generational curses when it comes to domestic abuse. And Latasha will share her story with us now as far as her relationship with her mother.
And so, yes, the relationship with my mother for years, for decades. To be honest, I hated her. I did. I hated her, and I blamed her for a lot. Where were you coming up? Here I am, the first grandchild, your first child. Yeah, granted, she had me young at 16, but where were you? And so, from my understanding, the conversation that I had with my grandmother, which I call Mama, she had me since I was 6 weeks years old. So I guess, once my mama got healed and she hit the street, she went back out there as a young teenager. So I was brought up in the country ways. I mean, pot of beans, hot water, cornbread, pork, salt pork. My children would tell you, if you ever meet my children, they would tell you they have never tasted any type of bean because I won't cook them. But she did teach me some things. I know how to cook some good soul food. I am clean. She didn't tell me how to budget because I like to shop, but she taught me about God. She told me about God and my Bible and how to forgive people. Forgive quickly and move on, Tasha. And so with that being said, yes, I witnessed, my mother would come around often, and I did witness several years of abuse from my mother, and I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, I want to call all type of names, and what is wrong with you? Why are you allowing him to abuse you like this? And like a pumpkin head, anywhere from a broken wrist to being hit upside the head with an iron skillet, blood coming down her face. My mother was a model, bad, cold, beautiful black queen. And she had that model type body. He was so jealous of her that he had her from the lavish clothes, which got from the money, I don't understand, I don't know, but into bummy clothes. Like she was homeless or didn't have a family. And he liked that. Granted, they only had three children, three siblings. And he kind of isolated her from the family. Did not allow her to come around church. I didn't even see her. And so literally, my grandmother would not allow her to raise me. My grandmother said no. Bernice Barnes was a feisty female. She said, no, Tasha's going to stay here with me. But the times that I did see my mother on visits and things like that, there was never a time that she didn't have a bandit or a black eye or arm in a cast, wrist in a cast, or some type of facial deformation. And for years I did not understand that, but she didn't say anything about it. She didn't leave. And so I felt that was the norm for her coming up as a child, even in my teenage years up until I had Amber.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But, so you were living with your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Was there domestic abuse going on while living with your grandmother as well?
Not in our house.
Not at all.
No.
But you saw more of it with your mother.
Yes.
Who you did not have a consistent relationship with, and you weren't with all the time.
Correct.
So you picked up the domestic violence really from your mother.
From my mother.
Because
right.
you didn't see it with your grandmother who you lived with.
Correct. And I believe that a part of that was because my mother stayed directly across the street from my grandmother's home.
I see.
Yeah. So she would run to the home, and the Barnes family, we're huge. And every Friday we had a fish fry barbecue. The whole neighborhood would come to our home. My grandfather they called him the fish man, and he'd come get fish, he can barbecue, and everybody gravitated to the Barnes household. And so she stayed right across the street, and there was a lot of times where my mother's abuser would, literally beat the crap out of her for whatever reason, and she'll walk across the street. I remember one time he literally tried to stuff a rug down her throat. And this was during the time that they did separate, and my grandmother allowed my mother to reside in the basement of our home, my childhood home in Harvey. And he asked to come by. My grandfather was a pistol ex-sheriff, and he didn't play that. And he was like, let me tell you something. Go down there, they call my mama Bay. Her real name is Patricia, but they say, go down there at Bottom and Bay. And we had music up, I was brought up on B.B. King and Bobby Blue Band, and it's my grandfather, he smoked his Camel cigarettes and had his, Old English alcohol?
O.E.
And he'd tell his old stories and dish out money, and so now all the cousins are at the home every Friday or Saturday. And it's just amazing how my grandmother, through all that noise, she can hear my mother, her child, say, Mama. And she called my grandmother JW. She said, JW, turn that music down. And literally, he was down there. She heard my mother say it again, Mama. And so everybody ran downstairs, and literally, he had my mother by the throat, stuffing a rug. I mean, like
stuffing a rug down
her throat.
Oh,
and I can remember, I had to be no more than 7 or 8 years old, but I literally remember that. That's something that has never left me. And when the rug came up, you know, my mother vomited or whatever. But I will never forget that vision that I had.
And it never left you?
It never left me, no.
Because it became a part of you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had adopted that.
You adopted that behavior. You know why? Because I think you really, even though you were living with your grandmother, you still wanted that love from your mother.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
now,
your birth
at 48. We're much better now. But back then, you know, why is she taking care of my 3 siblings and not me? What did I do? You know, I wanted my mother to be in my life. I wanted her to be there for the graduations and to help me with, my grandmother called it lesson, but my homework, and to tell me about the period and things like that when I had started and given birth. I mean, I probably wouldn't have had a child at 17 had my mother been around like I am with my children. But she just wasn't. She had other things going on. So yeah, I was angry, very angry.
I get it. And so now you married into it. We're going to take a break. We're going to pause. And now I want to talk about the escape and how you left the marriage when we return. We're spilling the tea. It's about to get good and juicy now, you guys. On how Latasha decided to leave her marriage, her abusive marriage, with 6 children, all girls.
Oh.
What happened? Tell us what happened.
Well, Ms. V, it takes a woman, statistically, it takes a woman 8 to 10 times to leave her abuser for different levels. Breadwinner. I mean, I was in love with him. I mean, granted, it took 5 years for me to fall in love with him, but I loved him, and I felt guilty. There was a sense of guilt because of the relationship that my daughters did have with him, despite seeing me or seeing the abuse, you know, the abuse or the bruises, or coming home and seeing the furniture either broken or missing or rearranged. They still had a love for him, even my 2 oldest daughters who are not even his. So it took a lot of thinking, it took a lot of planning, it took a lot of saving, and then I began to document. I started documenting, keeping a diary, which I still keep today, but for other things. But then I started telling more individuals, not so much family, but my close friends, my co-workers. I started telling them about it, and they saw it anyway. They saw the marks, and at that time I didn't wear makeup, and so they saw the bruises, and they were like, Tasha, something's going on at home, but they stayed out of it. They understood, and the hospital was so big, Old Forest Hospital at that time, it was so big, and you know, a lot of times they didn't even see, we didn't even see each other at night, maybe because I'm asleep. But anyway, and so my escape came, it came May 2nd, 2007. And there was a fight over his infidelity, and I believe he had gave me STD. He gave me an STD because, you know, down in the, excuse my language, in the JJ area, you know, when that's all twisted, we don't play that. I mean, I know for me, it's uncomfortable. And so I went to my doctor, who's still my doctor today. So she's my doctor for about 30 years. And she had told me that it was a bacterial infection. That's what it was. And she said, well, that can come from anything, anyone from being unclean. I'm thinking that it's an STD. That's what happened. And she said, but it could be, you know, he's out there messing around or things of that thing, which it was years of that. It was just years of infidelity. I just really got tired. And so I'm not innocent myself. And I go back to that, how I met my husband today. But there was an argument, May 2nd, 2007, over his infidelity and what the doctor had said before I got my results. And he became angry, and of course I tried to apologize when I got my results back, but he became angry, and I just knew I just knew that he's getting ready to punch me. Now, mind you, he's 6'3", 200 and, ex-football player, kind of type in high school. Like, big, bulky guy. Here I am, 5'4", 5'5", with heels on. And a fight broke out. And at this time, he had no filter. The children was home. It was a Wednesday evening. The children were home. And I asked him about it. And, again, in our household during that time, women should be seen and not heard, according to him. Well, I work too. I, pay half of the bills and everything as well. And with that, I couldn't even get my sentence out slapped. And that turned into a 2-punch back. And just in disbelief, like, did you literally knock my tooth out? And I said,
knocked your tooth out?
He knocked my tooth out. And I asked him, I said, the face was, did you just hit me? Yes, so now the name calling, yes, MF, yes, B, and things of that nature. And so my children, they were tired. My daughters were tired, especially my 4 oldest. They were tired. And so I had made up in my mind that going back to 2004, I knew that I wanted to do something different. And so I enrolled in school. I enrolled in a community college. And he had a problem with that because I didn't finish because the babies kept coming. And so I didn't finish, and so I was finally getting done with my associate at the junior college, getting ready to transfer to a university. And I got tired of the self-pity. I got tired of feeling sorry for myself. I got tired of the whispering. My family knew about it. They just respected me. They didn't say, well, if Tasha's not going to say anything, then I'm not going to say anything. But my friends, my BF, who's been my friend for 40 years now, I found out that she went and told family that, what I was dealing with. And I started developing my own identity. I stopped with the self-pity. And I did not want my daughters to think that this was normal behavior. This is not what love is, which I had to explain to them over and over and over again. This is not love. Mom, why are you staying? Especially my oldest, Mom, why are you here? And I really could not give Amber a concrete answer. I could not. It was all on me. I think it was based on fear. A lot of it was fear. And really not believing in myself that I can do it. Find my own crib, that I can do it. And so the escape came. It was May 2nd, 2007, when he put his hands on my child.
Okay, let's back up here, because you said something that your family respected you. Now, I'm torn at this point. I'm a little torn, and the reason I'm torn is because my family respects me as well, but they're going to help me,
Okay.
right? And I'm not saying nothing is wrong with how your family handled it, but I think that if I was in a situation with my family and they knew what was going on, they're coming hard. They are coming hard. So do you think, and only you can answer this question, do you think that because they saw a lot too with abuse, that they stayed out of it as well? Outside of respect, because I don't think that's respect to a certain extent. Because based on how you have shared with me that you've been abused and hurt and almost hospitalized and so, and the list goes on.
Right.
I don't know how much respect that is to see a family member go through that.
Well, we were brought up, what goes on in our household, stay in our household. Nothing goes out. And I believe that that was the model in each family. Now, mind you, my grandmother had 9 children and raising me and some other cousins. And so it was more so, if she don't share anything, then we're not going to ask. But trust me, when my uncles, and I have 4 uncles, when my uncles found out about it, conversation began. The uttering began. The conversations with Tasha, taking me to the side. Let me holler at you for a second. Is this N-word hitting you? Or, what are you going to do? Or, Tasha, this is not right. It was up to me to make that decision to leave. I mean, my uncles, not so much my aunts, but my uncles, even some of my uncles-in-laws, they didn't like what they were hearing, and they didn't like what they were seeing. They told me I was too much of a good person to allow a man to abuse you. And so one of my uncles, I looked at him like, you got a lot of nerve because I saw you hit your wife. They got together, so I really didn't pay him no attention. And so my other uncles, I got one that I'm really close to, he constantly, after it got out, I believe he saw me at a Menards or something. He saw my the marks, and it got out.
Y'all.
And it got out. He constantly made sure that he contacted me every day. And so that played a part of me getting my own identity, because now somebody know. Now I ain't got to be in this alone. Now somebody in my family know, a man, I bet you won't hit him. You know, and so now that helped me develop some strength. It helped me make a decision in my mind, Tasha, stay, go. And it helped me literally to say, you know what, enough. That's enough. So literally asking, well, they finding out about it. I never said anything. I agree, because one of mine was like, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Tell me the truth. And I had to come out with tears rolling down my face. He said, why you never said that? I was scared. I was scared. And I stand here today and say I was frightened of him, or what he would do to my children when I worked at night, or what he'd do to me when I sleep. I was frightened to the core of my soul.
Okay. Whew. Can we take a break? We need to take a break on this one. It's deep. It's really, really deep. And we don't know how to understand it, whether it's for our understanding or not. But what I admire about Latasha is that for 17 years of marriage, she kept her identity to progress and move on. So for the next segment, we'll talk about what she's doing now, all the degrees that she's accomplished since she's left her marriage, and her new boo.
Now my boo.
Hey! You'll see on that one. We'll be right back. Okay, we're going to continue on with our escape, and as we talked about your experience overall, you also mentioned that he was physically abusive to your children, and one particular child suffered severe harm from him. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that solidified your reason for leaving.
That was my breaking point right there. Don't touch my babies. And so my little diva that liked to dress and rest, her name is Ashley. Ashley will be 25 this year. Trying to get to me the day that I decided that enough was enough. Trying to get to me, he had me on the ground, one hand over my neck, and one hand over my neck, and then fighting off the girls, because my daughters, they were in, as you heard me mention earlier, they were so athletic, cheerleading, track, volleyball, softball. So they had their little trophies, and they just beating them upside the head trying to get, I'm kicking, and my little self, I couldn't shift. I couldn't get him off me, but he's trying to choke me. So one hand he had around my neck, the other hand he's fighting off the girls. And so my little diva, Ashley, she came from another angle. She came from the left side, and which the hand that he was fighting off his stepdaughters and then his own daughters, trying to get to me. Ashley came from another angle, was just starting, nothing in her hand. She was just hitting him, get off my mama, get off my mama. He pushed my baby so hard, I mean, like wham, in her chest, where she slid her head inches away from cracking on the tub.
Oh, jeez.
Her skull. And I just so happened to look over at her, and she's holding her back and holding her neck, and she's struggling to get off the floor. And I literally remember saying a quick prayer, and I promise you all, God gave me enough strength to do some type of move where I got him off of me. I got him off of me, and I mean, we overpowered him, and I started fighting him back. And one of my oldest child, she called 911, and that was it. Having a 9 in the house, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, people, I mean, basically you do what you want to do, but I know at that time, I was not a concealed carrier now, but I could have shot him. I could have did anything to stop, to end the abuse. but I didn't. And I guess it was just by the grace of God. God wanted to make sure that I'm here to tell my story, to testify. And so he was arrested. And I remember the police officer got there and he said, "Ma'am, you have any weapons or anything?" And I said, "No." He said, "You have a razor blade or anything?" I said, "No." He said, "Let me see your nails." And so my nails have always been short. And he looked at my nails. He said, "You have so much skin." I mean, he literally had blood dripping off his face like a fountain, a waterfall. And I said, he said, "Wow, that was a lot of damage." I said, "I had enough." And this is before the movie came out with Jennifer Lopez, Enough. I had enough. But what really gave me the strength, you put your hands on my babies. I don't play that. And so that was my breaking point. That's when I left and I never turned back.
So you dealt with him abusing you.
Yes.
But you stopped the trend of abuse with your children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was my breaking point. But it didn't stop there.
It didn't stop there.
It did not stop there.
You didn't tell me that part.
Even though we were separated, the abuse continued because now I'm in a whole, my mind is so confused. Even though we're in a separate household, I don't move, he don't move that, I don't move on. He was not paying any, giving me any child support, but I was okay. We were okay. We struggled, but trust, I had an issue with trust. It literally took me 8 years to remarry. I had trust issues, I was angry, and I hadn't forgiven him because every conversation that I have, it was his name was brought up, or someone would bring up his name, or even my daughters, and that wasn't fair to them. That was not fair to my 6 daughters, especially my 4 youngest, because they didn't ask him to be their father. I laid there and had these babies and conceived these babies, and so I literally was praying about it throughout the years, and the breaking point was not until February 14, 2014. And that's when I really freed myself because I was able to approach him face to face and tell him, "I forgave you." And I pray that God have mercy on your soul, of course. But it was at a local Walgreens, and it's Valentine's Day, which was his birthday. And I always made my daughters Valentine's Day bags when they come home from school, and they had stuffed bags stuffed with animals and toys and things like that. And I had ran out of a few supplies. And I ran up to the local Walgreens, and I heard his laugh. And immediately palpitations just kicked in. I literally, fear instantly took over. I was scared. And because the Lord had already told me what to do, I got you. And I said a quick prayer. I said, "Lord," I said, "I ain't ready to do this." He said, "Didn't I tell you to do something?" He said, "Didn't I tell you to do something?" And so here I am in line. I'm being disobedient. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to tell him I forgive him or anything. It just so happened, back in the day, I don't think they have it now, but back in the day with Walgreens, they used to have the Suntime paper rack. And I just so happened to look up. I finished my purchases and everything, and I look up at him. He's staring at me. I'm like, "That's the devil." But I'm scared. I'm sweating. I got my purchases, and I was ready to walk out the store. And the Holy Spirit said, "Didn't I tell you to do something? Trust me, I got you." And I turned back around, and I walked over there to him, and I said, "I forgive you." "Excuse me," he goes. I said, "I forgive you for the years of abuse that I had encountered with you." And he goes, "I forgave you a long time ago." And so I pivoted. I turned to look back at him. And of course, being a sister, I wanted to say something. I did. And I smiled. And I said, "Have a good day and happy birthday." And I walked away. Instantly, Latasha was free. That's when I freed myself. Yes. I have not uttered his name. I'm not angry anymore. I can literally talk about my abuse without, getting angry or crying or getting upset. I hold no malice or hatred in my heart for him at all. At all. Especially when my new husband came along.
So before we talk about the new husband, tell me about going back to school. Because what I admire so much about you throughout all of this, you still had goals.
Right.
Many women who are abused in certain abusive relationships, they do feel like they're at their breaking point. That's the end for them. Who else is going to want them? I stayed here, the level of their insecurity is at 100%, but you never lost that. You never lost who you were destined to be, the path and the direction that you are supposed to go in. So throughout all of that 17 years of marriage, you never lost it. So tell us about going back to school.
Absolutely. And so it was difficult working midnights and dealing with abuse and all sorts of abuse. I still had goals to attain. I made sure that my children were going to have a better life than I had. I made sure I was going to be a better mother than mine was to me, and that has happened. But I knew that I wanted to get advanced. I mean, I like to shop. I'm a coach girl, so I like to shop. And so in order to, in my mind back then, in order for me to make these things happen, I had to make some money. And so I elected to transfer from the local college to Governor State University, where not only did I get a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, I got a master's, first master's in criminal justice, and then my second master's in addiction studies, and a whole multitude of certificates. And so here I am today. I'm proud of myself where I came. I did not allow that to hinder me.
Should be.
It was difficult. Days that I ain't gonna make it. I'm not gonna make the grade, but I've always had above a 3.5 GPA,
Awesome.
even with my master's, and always been a speaker. And that literally, the bachelor's helped me. I got more strength.
Yeah.
And then that first master's, I got a little more strength. And then my second master's, bam, I'm there. And so I decided to become a first-time entrepreneur and first-time author.
All right. Now I was thinking something as you were talking just now with getting your education, getting multiple degrees, and focusing on who you were, but you did it with 6 children.
6 babies, yes.
You know, we got some people out here that can't do it at all, right? And then you have some that, have certain things that's coming in their way, and they give up on themselves, but you did not. And throughout that process, you came with baggage, but someone was willing to wait for you to unpack the baggage.
Absolutely.
And that's your husband today.
That's my husband today. And we had some barriers. I had some barriers in my way. And this man he's a Taurus, by the way. And so I'm a Pisces. And so we don't always, we agree to disagree. And I met my husband. We started off as really good friends. My husband's 6 years older than me. We have no children together, but he came in and he literally rescued me. He told me, he said, we went out talking over the phone a lot, but he was going through the situation himself, and then I was going through my situation, and we dated for a while, but only been married to be 5 years this November. But this man came in, and we're not perfect. We're not perfect by far. But he told me, I got you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And he came and he protected me. And I remember those words that he said. And he had been asking, and I was like, no, because I was scared. I had issues with trust, and are you going to be what he did? Because I literally was traumatized by what happened to me, not knowing how damaged I was. But the more we dated, the more we talked over the phone. My husband has a really deep voice. The more we talked, and the more it wasn't about sex with him. This man literally whined my little young tail. I mean, showed me all parts of Chicago I didn't even know existed. And he showed me what fine dining was, what to do. Act like a lady, basically. He busted me out. Act like a lady when you're in public. And I got you. His words, literally, they are still there. I got you. I'm not going to let anybody touch you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And he has been my protector. He really has. And I'm very proud to be called his wife. And again, he corrects me, and he told me, let me follow. Let me lead, you follow. Mm-hmm. So he done put me in my place a couple times when I was not only a promiscuous teenager, but I was a promiscuous wife as well. Like, what? Because I had developed that sense of, you don't tell me what to do. I had developed that sense of selfishness. I had developed that sense of zero tolerance in my life. And my husband has come and relax, be a lady. I got this. And he got it.
And he got it.
And he got me.
All right now. Hey, he got you. He got it. One quick thing that I want to touch is that how COVID has increased the domestic violence rate. also how domestic violence is in areas that a lot of parents need to pay attention to, and that's in high school and college.
Absolutely.
Where our young men and women don't know how to identify. Maybe that's just they come from a family always fighting, but it's actually titled and considered domestic violence. So really quick, because I want to also talk about Patricia's Place, where you created a refuge for victims of domestic abuse. And I want you to share that information, but I really, really would like for you to give us briefly how COVID is affecting many people in domestic violence, along with identifying domestic violence in areas that we're not thinking about: high school, college, even elementary school. Because we're raising some boys now, and some girls think that fighting is the key. But briefly share with us about what you're experiencing now, because you are really busy right now saving people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it just doesn't show up. Domestic violence is not just boys hitting girls or males hitting females. It's the other way around too. You got some females out here that like to jab too, and that's coming from a household that they thinking that this is the norm. They're angry. Daddy is not there. Mama may be working 2 or 3 jobs, or even both on drugs. So you have a lot of anger out here in our younger generation. As far as our teens, yes, they think that, especially with my girls that I counsel and mentor, they think this is love. Well, he hit me, he didn't mean to do that. No, baby, because one hit is going to lead to a second and third hit. And so I have to literally be their mentor and their guide to let them know this is not love. This is not the norm. This is not normal activity or behavior. Right now, you guys, I should be dating, going out on movies and things, doing homework together. No, he wants sex from me. He's taking my money, my little McDonald's money, and things of that nature. And so, yes, during this COVID-19, there has been an increase in domestic violence abuse, not only with mother and father or male, female, LGBT community, and with our children. The babies are being, it's literally, it's a high victim in domestic violence cases due to the isolation, due to one parent or both parents losing jobs, and so now frustration coming in, and they don't know how to talk or discuss or communicate, and so it comes out in different forms.
Okay, so you said I need to create something to help people.
Absolutely.
I need to recreate a refuge that's going to bring people to have the conversation of what they're dealing with. And I think this is how your experience is how Patricia's Place has come about. So give us a little information about Patricia's Place and how you're here to help, and what is its purpose.
Absolutely. And so, as I stated earlier, Patricia is my mom, and we did not have the best relationship. And when I got older and wiser and get into my Bible, and I realized the Lord spoke to me. She's a victim too. Who am I to judge? You've sinned. You've done these things. And so Patricia's Place is named after my mother. She's alive and well. Will be 65. Birthday coming up soon. And what Patricia's Place Domestic Violence Shelter is, we house women, children, and small pets, cats and dogs. And we provide supportive services. We provide emergency housing. We provide food, education. I have an excellent board. I have an excellent team where to do the education piece, or to find long-term housing for them. We have them coming from all over different states, and we give them education classes and coaching classes. And daily affirmations. Even in Patricia's Place Domestic Violence Shelter, we have what you call a confidence closet. And in the confidence closet, it's made up, it's a spa setting, and you're able to come in and just shop. Because a lot of times women and children leave with just the clothes on their back. I have an excellent attorney that's a part of Patricia's Place who will help them with orders of protection, and link with several municipalities, letting these police departments in these villages know who I am and what I stand on. And so we have a motto at Patricia's Place: join the fight, save a life, and help bring an end to domestic violence abuse. And so I have been busy. In addition to that, I have written my first book called Unveiled. It's a 10-step self-help activity guide. Not so much of how I dealt with abuse, because you have to look at domestic violence is what they call a silent killer. And I and many individuals of my board, we're the voice for the voiceless. And so with Unveiled, And that title came from because I'm unveiling, dealing with the abuse that I dealt with in my marriage, my first marriage. But it's a 10-step self-activity guide, and they're able to write down things. It's so many activities in these 100 pages. They're able to literally write on paper what they literally want to say. Because a lot of times it's hard to come out and speak. It's embarrassing. They don't know what to say. They don't know who to trust. So it's a lot of areas as to why God trusted me with this assignment, and so that would be awesome.
So the book is not out yet.
October Domestic Violence Month.
It's going to come out October Domestic Violence Month. So I promise you, you continue to follow me, follow this page. My first 5 friends who say that they want the book, send me a message, and I'll make sure you get the book.
Absolutely.
5 of you. Latasha Barnes, thank you so much for being on, well, my first guest on Health and Wholeness. I think the dialogue is touching. I think we're connecting. I think we're making changes. I think we're moving in a direction where people want to become educated and seeing the different avenues of domestic violence. So I am honored to have you. I am honored to my Facebook family and to W2 Studios, CANTV for trusting me and believing in me. And I love my Facebook family. I'm always connecting with them every single day, all day long. So thank you, Latasha. Your story is amazing. We will continue to follow you. We will continue to help you. I'll put information on my page so that people, if they need to donate to Patricia's Place, they will, and also provide information to get help for people. Thank you very much.